Billy Harvey.
Hey there, this is Rob Ruckus.
Hey, it's Tony from Fastball.
Hey, it's Ben McKelvey.
Hey guys, it's Matt here from the White Lakes.
What's up, everybody? Jacob from the Big News.
Hey guys, it's Nick Collins here from The Effect and Better Strangers.
Check me out at Almost Famous Magazine.
Buzzing film our clips to be dropping on Almost Famous Magazine.
Check out Almost Famous Magazine.
You can find more clips from my interview with Almost Famous Magazine.
3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
I was there for Riverside and I ran into you and I was just blown away. And that was, the start of this conversation, really. So look, again, don't go too far down because he's not wearing any pants, but those links below are ways to support this band. And I brought this up in other conversations. It's so important today. A like is an endorphin rush. I mean, we certainly want likes, but for artists, it's how you support them. Purchasing music. Keith just mentioned he's got tons of summer merch coming. Go on their site, buy some merch, wear a shirt. Do things that help support them or get their music in front of your friends. There are a lot of choices out there, but we have to, as an audience, keep supporting musicians today because the business has changed so dynamically. So please do support the Siberium, as well as, because we're going to take a turn in our conversation, because you may see this, may or may not, because we're kind of in these little vertical slats here on the video, but over Keith's shoulder is a light bulb, and part of that is because his lyric writing. Oh, there we go. Look at that. His lyric writing led him to, as I understand it, the Semple Truth podcast. Tell us about the story of how you got there and what it's all about, and we'll include that down below as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been very into what people consider to be the controversial topics in life, politics, religion, I don't know, social concepts, whatever way you want to look at it. And Siberium has allowed me to write about a huge chunk of those in depth, like, for example, the most recent one would be Double X off the new album. That is just a total, excuse my French again, but it's the total fuck you to the people that took away women's rights this last year. It was being written at that point, and the lyrics I completely scrapped and wrote in a day about that. So Double X is referring to the jeans Double X, and that's the good thing about Siberium. I write a whole song. 2020 Visionary on the original album is written all about the ideas of the laws of logic, but also the idea of, imagine if like Bernie Sanders had to become president instead of Trump, like where we could have possibly been, fingers crossed, as a society, and Historian on the first album is written all about, how if you're the one who wins the war, you're the one who writes the history. And it's a whole, so all these concepts you're not going to write about in a pop song, but then I decided, I want to do a podcast about all this stuff, and I don't really care. I'm so comfortable as a human being. I don't care if somebody doesn't like me for it, or if somebody disagrees with me. They're welcome to come and chat to me about it. But the Simple Truth allowed me to discuss them in real time, and I've had quite a bit of luck, really, with it hasn't really taken off in the sense of what people consider nowadays yet. I would say yet, but I have had the privilege of talking with some of the most important people in those fields. I talked with Hemant Mehta, who's the friendly atheist he's known as, and he has, he's been influential in the fight against, to keep church and state separate. And then somebody, again, like Andrew Seidel, who's written, actually, his book's right here. This The Founding Myth, which is an amazing book, just talking about, sort of Christian nationalism and the threat that it poses to America. And so it's really nice to be able to get to dive into that, even though at the moment, like I was saying, my time to do it is I've finished season 2. and I just have to take a break for a little while before I can get in and do more. And I'll probably do a bunch and get it ready because it's just so time consuming, as you know.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know,
it's great that we have this ability to provide content like this. And we do it from small studios, from homes. People do these from cars, you name it. Um, but there's a little bit more work involved. So, it's not automagical. So, I totally understand that and can appreciate that. Let's talk a little about some of your influences, right? I'm always interested in,
Mm.
you know, we're all pieces of someone or something that have touched us in our life. Who have been some of the biggest influences on you in your music and art, that you really have, taken a piece of, maybe added it, maybe changed it stylistically a little bit, but there's something there. Who are a few of those people that you've tapped into, or either met or followed or appreciated, that ends up there?
For me, the big start. If we just stick to prog for now, the two or three main ones would be, at first at least, was Dream Theater. Obviously, it's sort of where I started listening to prog, and Pink Floyd, um, and then actually Sting. I bought an album called Mercury Falling, and it just blew my mind that pop music could be that intricate. There's a song called Hung My Head, which is a 9/8 time. And I was trying to play the drums to it one day, realizing, oh my goodness, I have to really think my way through the independence of this track. Of course, I found out later it's Vinny Colaiuta, the guy who's just out of this world good as a drummer, one of the best drummers on planet Earth. Um, those were big influences. And so all my earlier prog that nobody's heard, by the way, it's except the people I grew up with, has a very Dream Theater influence. But then Porcupine Tree really changed my mind on prog. I realized, now everybody had been listening to Porcupine Tree for probably 15 years. I only learned of them after I had written a lot of the first Siberian album. And
Wow.
then I realized I had people compare some songs I'd written and stuff to them. And I was like, you do realize I'd never heard that song until after I wrote that song. And sometimes people say, like, oh, you kind of sound a little bit too much like them here. And I'm like, but I'd never physically heard the song you're talking about. So I take that as a huge compliment. I'm a massive Porcupine Tree fan now. Like, I really like their work.
I'm going to tell you, I've taken the new album out, and I've got your other ones, and one of the first things I started thinking about is, wow, I can feel some Porcupine Tree here. I feel those guys in this. You've definitely got shades of Porcupine in Porcupine in your in this album, which I think is great, because I think it's important to honor the people we get that influence and that inspiration from. So I think you did a great job with that.
Yeah, and I'm one of these people where um I'm happy to claim my influences where they are. Like, I don't it's at no point, this is the difference. So at no point have I ever written a riff or written a piece of music and thought I've written this because it sounds like X. It's just been later I go, oh, that reminds me of something. What does that remind me of? You see what I mean? And that's just the way, like, so clearly there's influences subconsciously, and it's only later that somebody else might even point it out to you. So I kind of like that. Uh, Porcupine Tree, what it was for me about them was that I realized you could be alternative sounding, but be proggy. So you didn't have to be a Symphony X or a Dream Theater. You could sound like Smashing Pumpkins, basically, but also be prog. And I was like, wow, that is where I want to sit. So, because I've always done mainstream music otherwise, so I wanted to have my prog stuff have a little edge of darkness and a little edge of so we always tune down a half step and stuff just to give it that more darker feel. And I'll choose a diminished chord often over a regular minor chord and things like that, and I try to purposely go dark when the opportunity arises, rather than stay clean and poppy, which is what I've done in the past. But then I'm also influenced in my prog by bands that aren't prog. So, like, it's probably funny to mention these two bands in the same sentence, but Bon Jovi are a huge influence of mine. Now, I'm talking not the early Bon Jovi everybody knows, but the mid-90s Bon Jovi that nobody knows. And the reason nobody knows it is because they didn't write hits on purpose. They wrote for themselves. And there's an album called These Days, which is arguably, in my opinion, one of the best rock albums ever written or produced. I think it's about as close to perfection as you can get. It's also when his voice was at its best and so on. And so I hear influences of that. And actually, I'll be honest, again, subconscious now, I'm aware of it later, but in what's the song? Wild Things in the Connected album. I'm playing a C, D, and an E minor shape on the guitar, and I didn't realize till after that it comes from the song These Days in Bon Jovi song. Not literally, it's there. You would never put the two songs together and hear the connection, but I hear the connection when I realize how I phrased it. I slide up from the C bar open chord to the D5 open chord, and I slide up at a particular time in the chord. I'm like, that's where I got that from. Didn't do it on purpose, but that's where I heard it. And actually, I want to give you guys for the prog listeners out there, you will not be disappointed, trust me, there's a British band called Thunder who are, I have literally got a tattoo of them on my arm, so that's how big a fan I am. Oh, I'll open it up. But they are a London-based band, and I think he has the best rock voice in the entire world. This is their kind of logo with the British flag, the Union Jack on it, and his name's Danny Bowes, and he sounds like, the only way to describe it would be sounds like Dave Coverdale mixed with Stevie Wonder. It's like a white guy with a rock voice that also sounds as soulful as Stevie Wonder does, with all the licks and the control. He is a huge influence on my singing. So when you hear me do something that you might be like, oh, I like how he sings there, or does a lick, a lot of that comes from my respect for Danny Bowes as a singer. So yeah, you'd never guess you'd squeeze those 5 or 6 bands together,
Wow. No, that and that segues us perfectly into the next thing I was going to ask you. Besides Thunder, which I imagine you listen to fairly often, I like to open people up to other bands. Of course, they need to go out and buy the new Siberium album, and then go buy the previous two. You got to go do that. But who are 3 artists, and it doesn't have to be prog, okay? These are what you're enjoying right now. 3 or 4 artists, you're listening to some of their music, and you're really digging it right now, that you feel that, it's inspired you, or it gets you moving to the beat, that you think other people might enjoy, sampling.
Wow. I came across a band recently called Big Wreck, as in WRE, Big Wreck. I've had the privilege recently of doing some big pop shows with the lead singer of NXS. So I've been working with him, and the guitar player who plays for Enrique Iglesias, and he's put me onto this band called Big Wreck. So they sound like rocky, but they've got this twist, and they're not quite pop and they're not quite rock, and I like it. It sits well with me. But honestly, there's some songs that have come out recently by different people. Like, for example, I know it sounds silly, but like Adele's song "Easy on Me," it's just brilliant. It's a brilliant song. It's beautiful. I would love to sing it myself sometime and record myself doing an acoustic version of it, just to, show off a little, I guess. Why not? And then it's not so much what I'm listening to now, it's what I will decide to listen to if I want to listen to music, if that makes sense. But if we stick with prog, for me, I keep going back to a band at the minute called oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the name, but they sound very much like Us at times. I have to pull it up to remember. I can't believe this. Lonely Robot. I don't know if you've heard of Lonely Robot.
No.
They sound like much more Pink Floydish than we do. It's very big and melodic, but they have moments of other stuff. But their melody lines are so beautiful. Like Lonely Robot is a band you have to go listen to. If you like Porcupine Tree or any of those bands, they are a band I would highly recommend. The new Extreme album is pretty badass. He's probably in my top three. Well, he is in my top three favorite guitar players of all time. I think Nuno Betancourt is a master. What else do I have on here? I was actually listening to Taylor Swift's new album because I wanted to see if I felt it warranted 300 million streams in a day. Let's just say I don't think it warrants 300 million streams in a day, but I do understand why people feel the way they do. And if you really want to get into it, I really like, as an artist, John Baptiste, who was the guy that was doing the band on Stephen Colbert for a long time. There's a clip everybody should look up, and it's that Chris Wallace guy that used to do Fox News. He interviews him at the piano, and he says, "Can you maybe show me how genres can interact?" And I swear he starts playing, what's the, oh my God, I'm blanking, Beethoven. And he's doing it. And then he changes it into a blues song, into a gospel song, into a jazz song, all in 4 bars. He just starts changing it. And you can see Wallace's chin on the floor at how incredible this guy's ear is. Like, I don't think I've heard arguably better musician in front doing something live in a long time. It was out of this world.
I'm going to have to get the link. And you know what? For those of you who have stuck with us this long, you're going to get the chance to see that too, because we'll stick that one down below. And that leads us to my wrap-up question. I'm always curious. If there was one artist out there that you had a chance to collaborate, and they could be living or past, who would it be and why? Why do you what are your thoughts on why that would be a great collaboration?
It's so tough because I think I've screwed myself for that answer because I like so many styles. Like, it would have to be 3 because I'd have to pick one from each of the genres that I love, right? Because if it's going to be pop, it would have to be Bryan Adams, because I have grown up idolizing him as much as anybody as I ever would idolize someone. Don't like that terminology, but a lot of my early career is based on him and how he just plays and plays and plays and writes great song after great song after great song. And even though maybe he isn't huge in the zeitgeist right now in America, he's still playing stadiums all over the world. He's still massive. His voice is still as good as it was in 85, 86. Like, I don't know how, but 40 years later, he still has that perfect range and everything. So I'd love to write songs with him and perform with him live. I would have to say, I would, I don't know if I want to say Steven Wilson or I want to say Porcupine Tree in general, because I know he is the sort of brains behind it. But then I did get to go on tour with Gavin Harrison and interact with him and see just how much of a master at his craft he was. So to be able to maybe write a few riffs with either of those guys would be pretty incredible, because they're incredible. And then I just would love to sing. The movie Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg, where he gets to become like Judas. I know it's not Judas Priest, but I think it's the story. He gets to become the lead singer of the band he's always loved. I always had literal dreams that would happen to me with this Thunder band, that I would get asked to go, because I obviously knew all the words and could sing the notes and stuff. I'd get asked to do it when he wasn't able to do it anymore. But he's, 60 something, in his late 60s now, and can still sing it. So I don't think there's any hope for me, but that would be an epic thing for me to do as well. I think that's it. That's a really tough one.
Maybe that's your unobtainium. Maybe that's your unobtainium. So
I like that.
we brought it
I-
back.
Ask me that question again in a year's time, and I'll see if I give you the same answer. Because I don't
Well,
know
you
if I
know,
would, honestly.
in a year or so time, maybe we'll have another Siberium album to talk about. Keith, this has been incredible. We could probably go on for a couple of hours, and for all of you who have stuck with us this long, thank you. I really appreciate you showing up for our conversations. Keep up with Almost Famous magazine. Keep up with the Siberium. Buy them, support them. Get the albums. See them. If you're in the Chicagoland area, that's where Keith's based. See his band out and about. But definitely, we're appreciative. Keith, I'm appreciative. This has been a great conversation. Everybody, keep supporting this channel. Subscribe. We've got great interviews coming up from a wide variety of people within the music business and a great range of conversations. So, Keith, thanks so much. It's been great seeing you. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Scott. Loved it. Thank you.